Guys, tonight we're going to talk about Bear defense. And it's the same positions as base defense. So there's not a personnel change, but it's simply different alignment. And just a quick history lesson: Bear defense is a universal football defense. It's used on Sundays and Saturdays, but it's primarily used for short yardage situations or aggressive situations the defense wants to put themselves in. The word bear came from, to be honest, came from 1986 Chicago Bears. So as you guys, have played the Maddens before, have heard about the Chicago Bears in 1986 and their defense, that's where the term came from. So Buddy Ryan was the original architect of this thing in the 60s and 70s, and was the defensive coordinator of the Bears at that point in time. And this is kind of his thing. So why? There's very specifics about the Bear defense that change from our base defense, but just understand that it's based out of a 3-4 personnel grouping, which our base defense is. So here are the specific changes for each position. The corners are now playing press, and they're going to be inside shade of number 1. So they're still inside shade of number 1, but now this is where they're pressed up and on. Okay, so they're trying to take away any slant route. They're going to go ahead and dare or make the offense run vertical on an outside release. Okay, so our safeties are a little different, strong and free. Our strong safety is he's pressed up inside shade of number 2 now. Okay, so in this scenario, you see Mount Baker's basic 21 set, 2 and 1. So here's 1, here's 2. This 2 is a tight end. So he is pressed up. He's inside shade of number 2, but he's also a C-gap player now in the run. So he's as close to that tight end as he can be without being offsides, but he's a C-gap player as well. So if this player blocks, he's a C-gap player. If this player outside releases, well, he's got him at man-to-man. So he's kind of got to be a stud football player and do 2 things here. Okay? Our free safety, you're going to be playing press man inside shade of number 2. But in this scenario, there isn't a number 2. If there was a slot receiver, free safety would have them. But in a lot of times, in 21 sets, there isn't a number 2. So you're pressed up inside shade of number 2, except when there isn't number 2. And when there's not, well, you get to play center field. So this is where you see the free safety, playing center field, no man-to-man, immediate man-to-man scenarios. But he's an alley player in both directions, but he can kind of clean up just about anything. Ryan Urlacher played this position at New Mexico in his college career. Bear cover 1. He was the 1 free safety that was high, making 20 tackles a game. But we can also put our free safety at linebacker. So if we wanted to bring him up and put him here, we'd move over our Buck and our Mike to have better spacing. But now we have 3 linebacker types across the board. So there's 2 different things we can do with our free safety when there isn't a number 2 either side. Our Sam and our Will, we're going to be lined up outside the last player on your side, and your feet are split, and you're rocking back and forth, but you're blitzing. You're coming. So, your feet are split, your inside foot is forward, you're rocking back and forth, you're looking for first movement, and you're gone at the snap. You're still a contained player on the outside, but you're rushing, you're blitzing every time. And in fact, your aiming point, your shoulders and your hips are pointed at the butt cheek of the last, skill player you see in the backfield. It could be a quarterback in the shotgun, or it could be in this scenario, these 2 running backs that are offset. Okay, our Mike and our Buck, you guys are inside shade of offensive tackle, and you guys can get a little bit wider. You don't have a gap responsibility, so there's no immediate gap based on what these guys are doing and strong safety are doing. So our Mike and our Buck are alley players, so that's why they can get a little bit wider instead of lining up on the guard. So they can get inside shade of offensive tackle, be closer to the alley. But this is where you can roam and you don't have an immediate gap. So, again, go back to Bears. You think Mike Singletary, if you ever heard of that name. He was the Mike backer, didn't have an immediate gap, so he could flow left, flow right, do whatever he wanted to do, and tackle, have a lot of tackles about it. Our end and our tackles are now reduced down to 3 techniques right outside shade of the offensive guard. You guys are both B-gap players. And then our nose guard, he's going to be head up at the center. And he is a 2-gap player, so he's a double-A gap player. So we kind of put a big dude to just kind of jack up the center and play double-A gaps. And by doing that allows these players to roam that much more. And bottom line is you're going to get a one-on-one with the center because these guards are now, they have somebody outside sheet of them, so most likely